The morning sun of Kepler Prime cast golden light through the massive windows of the Galactic Federation Council chamber. President Kang Dae-ho stood at the podium, his calm voice carrying across the vast hall filled with representatives from 47 different species. His words were being translated into hundreds of languages and broadcast across the galaxy. "Peace is not the absence of conflict," Kang said, his hands gesturing gently as he spoke. "Peace is the presence of justice, understanding, and hope for tomorrow." The alien delegates listened with respect. Some had tentacles that swayed in agreement. Others had crystalline bodies that chimed softly in approval. The bird-like Averans clicked their beaks in their version of applause, while the massive rock creatures called stonemen rumbled deep acknowledgments. Commander Park Ji-woo watched from the security section, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. As head of Terran Defense, he was always alert, but today felt different. The peace talks between the Saurek Empire and the Vorthak Collective had been going on for weeks, and both sides were finally ready to sign an agreement. The Saureks were large reptilian creatures, standing over 8 feet tall with thick scales and powerful jaws. They had been fighting the Vorthaks for nearly 2 centuries over mining rights in the Outer Rim territories. The Vorthaks were strange beings made of living crystal, their bodies shimmering with internal light. They communicated through harmonic vibrations that could shatter glass when they were angry. Dr. Yunari sat with the scientific delegation, her tablet recording every word. As the chief xenobiologist, she had spent months studying both species, learning their cultures and finding common ground. She smiled as President Kang continued his speech, knowing that her research had helped make this moment possible. "Today we prove that differences in form do not mean differences in worth," Kang continued. "The Saurek people and the Vorthak Collective have chosen to build bridges instead of walls, to create prosperity instead of destruction." The Saurek ambassador, a massive creature named Thrak Gormundal, stood slowly. His voice was deep and rumbling. "President Kang speaks truth. Humans have shown us that strength comes from helping others, not crushing them." The Vorthak representative, a tall crystalline being called Resonance of Deep Waters, chimed in harmony. The translation devices converted her musical language into words. "Humanity teaches us that different songs can create beautiful music together. We accept this peace." The crowd erupted in celebration. Beings of all shapes and sizes cheered in their own ways. Some roared, others sang, and a few released colorful gases that meant joy in their cultures. President Kang smiled, his eyes crinkling with genuine happiness. After the ceremony, Kang walked through the corridors of the Federation building with his security team. Commander Park stayed close, but the president often insisted on meeting people personally. He stopped to shake hands with young Aviaran students who had come to watch the historic event. "Mr. President," one of the bird-like children chirped, "will there really be no more fighting?" Kang knelt down to the child's level, his voice gentle. "There will always be disagreements, little one. But now, instead of fighting with weapons, the Saureks and Vorthaks will fight with words and ideas. That kind of fighting helps everyone grow stronger." Dr. Yunari joined them, carrying a small gift. "I brought something for you," she told the child, handing over a small crystal that glowed with soft blue light. "This is a friendship crystal. Vorthak children give them to their best friends. Now you have one too." The young Aviaran chirped with delight and hugged the crystal to her feathered chest. Her teacher, an older Aviaran with silver feathers, bowed deeply to the humans. "Your people bring such kindness to our galaxy. We are honored to know you." Later that evening, the human delegation gathered on their ship, the Harmony's Dawn. The vessel was beautiful, with smooth curves and large windows that showed the stars outside. Unlike the warships of other species, it looked more like a work of art than a military vessel. Captain Bae Soo-jin, the ship's commander, raised a cup of tea and toast. "To another successful mission. 3 years without a major war in our sector." "The galaxy is learning," Dr. Yunari said, settling into her chair with a happy sigh. "When I first started this job, species would rather destroy each other than admit they were wrong. Now they come to us for help." Commander Park nodded but looked thoughtful. "Sometimes I wonder what the other species really think of us. Do they see us as weak because we choose talking over fighting?" President Kang looked out at the stars, his reflection visible in the window. "I hope they see us as strong enough to choose peace. It takes more courage to extend your hand in friendship than to make a fist." The conversation was interrupted when Lieutenant Oh Dong-wook entered the room. He was young but capable, one of the new generation of humans who had grown up in the peaceful galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the outer colonies." "Everything is quiet, trade is flowing normally, and the new cultural exchange programs are very popular." "Good," Kang said. "Dr. Choi Hee-jin will be pleased to hear that. Her education initiatives are working well." Dr. Choi was back on Earth, running programs that taught alien children about human culture while human children learned about other species. It was one of many projects that had made humanity beloved across the galaxy. As the night grew late, the delegation prepared for sleep. Tomorrow they would travel to 3 more systems, mediating smaller disputes and checking on trade agreements. It was quiet work, the kind that prevented wars before they could start. President Kang stood alone on the observation deck looking out at the peaceful stars. Somewhere out there, families of dozens of different species were sleeping safely because conflicts had been resolved with words instead of weapons. Children were learning that differences were something to celebrate, not fear. He thought about his own childhood on Earth, where his grandmother had told him stories about the old wars. Humans had once been fighters, she said, but they had learned that building was better than destroying. Now humanity used that lesson to help others. The president smiled as he watched a transport ship pass by, its lights blinking peacefully in the darkness. Inside were probably traders, families, students, and travelers from many different worlds, all moving freely through space that had once been divided by conflict. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight the galaxy was at peace. And President Kang Dae-ho, the man many called the Great Peacemaker, went to sleep knowing that he had helped make it so. The attack came without warning during what should have been a routine diplomatic visit. President Kang Dae-ho had arrived at Nexus Prime, the great neutral trading station that floated in the space between 3 different stellar nations. The station was massive, home to over 2 million beings from across the galaxy. It was considered the safest place in known space, protected by treaties that every major power had signed. Commander Park Ji-woo had argued against the visit. Intelligence reports suggested that a group called the Purity Coalition was growing bolder, spreading their message that aliens had become too dependent on human peacekeeping. But President Kang insisted on attending the trade summit, believing that showing fear would only encourage extremists. The morning started normally. President Kang met with Station Administrator Kex Valdris, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid whose species had built Nexus Prime centuries ago. They discussed expanding the station's medical facilities to serve more species. "Your doctors have performed miracles here," Kex said as they walked through the busy marketplace. "The children's hospital you helped fund has saved thousands of lives." Around them, the station buzzed with activity. Merchants from dozens of species sold goods from across the galaxy. Children of all kinds played together while their parents conducted business. It was exactly what President Kang had always envisioned for the galaxy's future. Dr. Yu Nari was examining some new plant samples when her communicator buzzed. "Nari, we need you in the conference room," came Commander Park's voice. He sounded tense. She found Park and the security team gathered around a holographic display, showing the station's sensor readings. Lieutenant Oh Dong-wook pointed to several red dots moving toward the station. "Unknown ships approaching from the neutral zone," Oh said. "They're not responding to station traffic control and their weapon signatures are hot." Park frowned. "How many?" 12 ships, medium size. Configuration doesn't match any known peaceful vessels." Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The emergency broadcast system activated, and Administrator Kex's voice echoed through every corridor. "All residents and visitors, please move to designated safety areas immediately. Unknown vessels are approaching the station with apparent hostile intent." President Kang arrived at the conference room just as the first shots were fired. The station's shields absorbed the initial blasts, but everyone could feel the vibrations through the deck plates. "Mr. President, we need to get you to the secure bunker," Commander Park said, already moving toward the door, but Kang stopped him. "Wait, let me try to contact them first. Maybe this is all a misunderstanding." Park wanted to argue, but he knew that tone in the president's voice. Kang stepped up to the communications panel and opened a channel to the attacking ships. "This is President Kang Dae-ho of the Terran Republic. You are attacking a neutral station protected by Galactic Treaty. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came immediately. A harsh voice filled the room. speaking with an accent that didn't match any known species. "President Kang, how perfect. You are exactly who we came to find." On the main screen, a figure appeared. It was humanoid, but clearly not from any species they recognized. Its skin was pale gray and its eyes were completely black. Most disturbing were the surgical scars covering its face and hands, as if it had been altered many times. "I am Vex Corvain of the Purity Coalition," the figure said. "Today the galaxy begins to heal from the disease of human weakness." President Kang stepped closer to the screen. "I don't understand. What have humans done to harm you?" Vex Corvain's face twisted into something like a smile. "You have made them soft. You have taught them that mercy is strength, that talking is better than fighting. You have infected the galaxy with your pathetic compassion." The station shook again as more weapons fire struck the shields. On the tactical display, Lieutenant O could see that several sections were already showing damage. "The strong should rule the weak," Vex continued. "Species should fight for dominance, not hold hands and sing together like children. You have made the galaxy weak, President Kang, and weakness must be purged." "You're wrong," Kang said calmly. "Cooperation makes us all stronger. When species work together—" "Enough!" Vex's voice became a shriek. "Your lies end today. The galaxy will watch you die, and then they will remember what strength really means." The connection cut off, and the station shook more violently. Administrator Kex's voice came over the speakers again, panic clear in his words. "Shields at 60% and falling. All military vessels, please respond immediately." Commander Park grabbed President Kang's arm. "Sir, we're leaving. Now." But as they rushed toward the emergency transport, explosions rocked the station. The lights flickered and emergency power kicked in. Through the windows, they could see coalition ships firing continuously at the station's critical systems. "They're targeting life support," Dr. Yu Nari said, reading her scanner, "and the civilian areas." That was when President Kang made his choice. Instead of running to safety, he turned toward the station's main communication center. "I need to coordinate the evacuation. Get people to the escape pods." "Sir, no," Park shouted. "It's too dangerous." But President Kang was already running down the corridor toward the central hub. He had to help save the civilians, the children, the families who had come to the station believing it was safe. He reached the communication center just as a massive explosion tore through the station's outer hull. The blast doors sealed automatically, but President Kang was trapped on the wrong side. Commander Park and his team reached the sealed doors minutes later. Through the security cameras, they could see President Kang working frantically at the communication controls, directing rescue ships to the areas where people needed help most. "Override the blast doors," Park ordered. "I can't, sir," the technician replied. "The system won't allow it while the area is depressurizing." On the screen, they watched President Kang continue his work even as debris fell around him. He was sending out evacuation orders, coordinating with rescue ships, and making sure that families were reunited in the escape pods. Then Vex Corvain appeared behind him. The coalition leader had somehow beamed directly onto the station. In his hand was a weapon that glowed with sickly green energy. President Kang turned slowly, showing no fear even as he faced his killer. "Any last words, Peacemaker?" Vex asked. President Kang stood straight, dignity intact even in his final moment. "Yes, the galaxy will remember this day and it will remember you. But not the way you think." Vex Corvain fired. The weapon's energy tore through President Kang's chest, and he fell forward onto the communication console. His last act was to press the emergency broadcast button, ensuring that his death would be transmitted across every communication network in the galaxy. Commander Park screamed and pounded on the blast doors, but it was too late. On screens across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the murder of the man they had called the Great Peacemaker. Vex Corvain looked directly into the camera and spoke to the galaxy. "This is what happens to weakness. This is what happens to those who choose mercy over strength. The age of human softness is over. The Purity Coalition will teach you all what real power looks like." Then he vanished, beaming back to his ship as Coalition forces retreated into deep space. The station fell silent, except for the sound of rescue ships arriving to help the survivors. But across the galaxy, something else was beginning. On Earth, on human colonies, on human ships throughout known space, people were learning that their beloved president was dead, and they were learning who had killed him. The funeral of President Kang Dae-ho was held on Earth, in the Great Plaza where he had first announced his vision for a peaceful galaxy. Over 1 million beings attended in person, while billions more watched from across the stars. Vice President Lee So-young stood at the podium where her predecessor had spoken so many times about hope and understanding. Behind her, representatives from every major species in the galaxy had come to pay their respects. The massive stonemen stood like living mountains, while delicate crystal beings chimed softly in their morning songs. But it was Dr. Choi Hee-jin who delivered the most important speech of the day. Dr. Choi had been President Kang's closest advisor, the woman who had helped shape his peaceful policies. She was small and quiet, the kind of person who preferred libraries to battlefields. As she stepped up to speak, her voice was steady, but her eyes were filled with a strange, cold fire. "Today we mourn a great man," she began, "but today we also remember who we are." The crowd listened in respectful silence. Dr. Choi touched the small memorial hologram that showed President Kang's smiling face. "Many of you knew Dae-ho as the great peacemaker," she continued. "You saw his kindness, his wisdom, his endless belief that every conflict could be resolved through understanding. What you may not know is that his choice to pursue peace was exactly that, a choice." She paused, and something in her tone made Commander Park lean forward in his seat. Admiral Kim Tae-jun, who commanded the home fleet, felt a chill run down his spine. "Before humans joined the galactic community," Dr. Choi said, "we spent thousands of years learning how to fight. We fought each other with sticks and stones, then with metal weapons, then with chemical explosives. We fought with machines that could level cities, and finally with weapons that could crack planets in half." The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Most species had heard stories about humanity's violent past, but they assumed those were exaggerations. "We created diseases that could kill billions," Dr. Choi continued, her voice growing stronger. "We built machines that could think and fight better than any living being. We changed our own bodies, making ourselves faster, stronger, and more deadly than nature ever intended." Dr. Yunari watched from the audience, remembering conversations with Dr. Choi about human evolution. She had always wondered why humans seemed so much more physically capable than their peaceful nature suggested they should be. And then, Dr. Choi said, "We chose to stop. We chose to put away our weapons and extend our hands in friendship. We chose to heal instead of harm, to build instead of destroy. We chose peace not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to choose mercy." The plaza was completely silent now. Even the wind seemed to have stopped blowing. President Kang embodied that choice every day of his life. He could have conquered worlds, but he chose to save them. He could have ruled through fear, but he chose to lead through love. He could have shown you our true capabilities, but he chose to show you our best nature instead. Dr. Choi's voice became harder, colder. That choice died with him on Nexus Prime. In the military section, General Song Min-ho sat up straighter. He had been retired for 15 years, spending his time teaching history at the academy. But this morning he had received new orders, recalling him to active duty for something called Protocol 7. "The Purity Coalition believes they have killed our weakness," Dr. Choi said. "They think they have shown the galaxy that mercy is a flaw to be eliminated. They are wrong." She turned to look directly into the cameras that were broadcasting her words across the galaxy. "They have not killed our weakness. They have killed our restraint." The words hung in the air like a threat. In the crowd, alien diplomats began to whisper among themselves. Something in Dr. Choi's voice, something in her eyes, reminded them of old stories about humanity's violent past, stories they had dismissed as myths. "To the beings of the Purity Coalition," Dr. Choi continued, "you wanted to see our true nature? You wanted to know what humans are really capable of. You killed the one man who stood between you and that knowledge." She stepped back from the podium, but her final words carried clearly across the plaza. "Now you will learn why President Kang worked so hard to keep that knowledge buried." After the ceremony, the human leadership gathered in the secure conference room beneath the government complex. The room hadn't been used in decades. It was designed for wartime planning, with maps of every strategic system in the galaxy and communication links to every human military installation. Vice President Lee So-young, now acting president, sat at the head of the table. Around her were faces that the peaceful galaxy had rarely seen, the real military leaders of humanity, Men and women who had spent their careers preparing for a war they hoped would never come. General Song Min-ho spread out a holographic display showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Red marks indicated attacks by coalition forces. 17 colonies hit in coordinated strikes. Millions of civilians dead or missing. They're not just attacking random targets, he explained. They're going after our agricultural worlds, our research stations, our cultural centers. They want to destroy everything that made President Kang's vision possible. Admiral Kim Tae-jun added his own data. Our intelligence network is reporting coalition forces in 43 systems. Fleet strength estimated at over 10,000 ships. They've been building this for years, maybe decades. How did we miss this? Acting President Lee asked. Commander Park answered, his voice bitter. Because we were looking for traditional military threats. We weren't expecting a movement dedicated to destroying the idea of peace itself. Captain Bae Soo-jin, who had barely escaped when her ship was attacked near the Outer Rim, spoke up. They're not just killing humans, Madam President. They're targeting any species that supports our diplomatic methods. The Avarans, the Blueskins from Nexus Prime, even some Saurek colonies that signed peace treaties. Dr. Yunari looked up from her analysis pad. I've been studying their broadcasts. They're calling it a cleansing of weakness. They want to return the galaxy to a time when only the strongest species survived. Acting President Lee nodded slowly. Then we need to show them what strength really looks like. She turned to General Song. Tell me about Protocol 7. The old soldier's eyes hardened. Protocol 7 is what we hoped we'd never need. Complete military mobilization, total war protocols, full activation of our dormant weapons programs. He touched a control, and the holographic display changed to show ship designs that looked nothing like the peaceful vessels the galaxy knew. These were angular, aggressive, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Every civilian ship in our fleet was built with hidden military capabilities, General Song explained. Cargo holds that can be converted to barracks, sensor arrays that can become targeting systems, engines that can be overcharged for combat maneuvers. Another display showed human soldiers in armor that looked more like mechanical suits than protective gear. Enhanced infantry battalions, using the genetic modifications that our ancestors developed. Enhanced strength, speed, reflexes, and healing ability. Admiral Kim added, and the weapons programs that we've been quietly maintaining. Antimatter torpedoes, gravitational disruptors, nanite swarms, space-time manipulation devices. Acting President Lee looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. These were good people, peaceful people, who had spent their careers trying to avoid exactly this situation. But President Kang was dead, and the galaxy needed to see that his murder had consequences. How long? She asked. 48 hours for basic mobilization, General Song replied. 72 hours for full deployment. And our industrial capacity? We can convert our shipyards to military production within a week. The manufacturing protocols are already in the computers, just waiting for activation. Acting President Lee stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the peaceful city below. People were still leaving the memorial service, aliens and humans walking together, children playing in the parks. President Kang believed that every being in the galaxy deserved to live without fear, she said quietly. The coalition has made that impossible. Therefore, the coalition must be eliminated. She turned back to face her military leaders. Activate Protocol 7, full mobilization. I want every coalition base identified, every coalition ship tracked, every coalition supporter cataloged. General Song nodded grimly. And our rules of engagement? Acting President Lee's voice became as cold as space itself. There are no rules. There is no mercy. There are no prisoners. They wanted to see humanity's true nature. She looked at each person in the room, seeing her own determination reflected in their eyes. Show them. The galaxy's first glimpse of humanity's true nature came 72 hours after President Kang's funeral. The Terran fleet that emerged from hyperspace near the Coalition stronghold at Kepler, 402b, looked nothing like the peaceful vessels that had mediated disputes for decades. The ships were transformed, their hulls bristling with weapons that had been hidden beneath false panels. Where once there had been smooth diplomatic vessels, now there were angular predators built for war. Admiral Ryu Jae-sung stood on the bridge of the Vengeance of Terra, humanity's new flagship. The ship was massive, nearly twice the size of the Old Harmony's Dawn, and its hull was covered in armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Around him, his crew worked with deadly efficiency, their enhanced reflexes and improved neural interfaces, allowing them to operate systems that would have overwhelmed normal beings. Enemy fleet detected, reported Lieutenant Commander Huang Miyang from the sensor station. 200 coalition vessels, including their command dreadnought Purifier of Worlds. Admiral Ryu nodded. The coalition had turned Kepler 442b into a fortress world, complete with orbital weapon platforms and a fleet strong enough to conquer most star systems. They thought their numbers and their fanatical dedication would be enough. They were about to learn otherwise. Begin broadcasting on all frequencies, Admiral Ryu ordered. I want every being in this system to see what happens next. The transmission went out across the galaxy, picked up by news networks and government communication centers on thousands of worlds. Beings who had known humanity only as gentle peacekeepers gathered around screens to watch what would happen. On the bridge of the Purifier of Worlds, Vex Corvain smiled as he saw the human ships approaching. Look at them, he told his officers. Barely 300 ships against our fleet of 200. They still think they can solve everything through superior numbers and technology. But Captain Bei Su-jin, now commanding the destroyer Righteous Anger, was already proving him wrong. Her ship moved with impossible speed, dodging between coalition vessels like a dancer avoiding clumsy partners. Her weapons, no longer hidden beneath sensor arrays, tore through enemy shields as if they were made of paper. The battle was being watched throughout the galaxy, and what the observers saw defied everything they thought they knew about warfare. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons fired with precision that bordered on supernatural, hitting critical systems with every shot. Major Oh Dong-wook led the first ground assault on the coalition's main base. His enhanced soldiers moved through the enemy fortifications like wolves among sheep. The coalition forces were well-trained and heavily armed, but they had never faced humans who were no longer holding back. Oh's team breached the main bunker in 17 minutes. The coalition defenders, despite their advanced equipment and numerical advantage, found themselves outmatched by human tactics that seemed to anticipate their every move. How are they doing this? Demanded Coalition General Thex Mortain as his carefully planned defenses crumbled. Humans are supposed to be weak. They're supposed to be soft. But the human soldiers moving through his base were anything but soft. They moved like machines but fought with the intelligence of master strategists. Every corridor they entered became a trap for coalition forces. Every defensive position they approached was neutralized before the defenders could fire a shot. In space, the battle was going even worse for the coalition. The human fleet was systematically dismantling their opponents with weapons that defied conventional understanding. Captain Lee Young-ho of the cruiser Endless Sorrow fired something called a gravitational lance that twisted space itself, crushing 3 coalition frigates into metal balls. Commander Park Min-seo, now aboard the battleship Kang's Vengeance, launched clouds of nanites that ate through enemy hull plating like acid through flesh. The tiny machines reproduced themselves using the materials from destroyed coalition ships, creating an ever-expanding swarm of destruction. But it was Dr. Moon Haewon's new weapons that truly terrified the watching galaxy. Her antimatter torpedoes didn't just destroy coalition ships. They made them disappear entirely, leaving behind only brief flashes of light where vessels had once existed. This is impossible, Vex Corvain snarled as his fleet was systematically destroyed around him. Humans don't have weapons like this. They don't fight like this. Admiral Ryu's voice came through the communication system, calm and cold. You wanted to see our true nature, Vex Corvain. You killed our restraint and awakened our fury. This is what you asked for. On the planet's surface, Major Oh's forces had reached the Coalition's command center. The building was heavily fortified, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. Coalition soldiers had prepared for a long siege. Oh's team took it in 4 minutes. They moved through the building like shadows, their enhanced senses allowing them to track enemies through walls and around corners. Their weapons were precise, their tactics flawless. Coalition defenders found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their positions before they did. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as human soldiers demonstrated capabilities that had been hidden for generations. They moved faster than should have been possible, survived injuries that would have killed normal beings, and fought with a coordination that suggested they were sharing thoughts. "What are they?" whispered Aviaran news anchor Chirp Seven Winds as she watched the footage. "Those aren't the humans we know." But Dr. Yunari, now serving as scientific advisor to the military command, could have told her the truth. These were exactly the humans she had always known, the apex predators that evolution had created, the war machines that had conquered an entire planet before choosing to pursue peace instead. In the Coalition Command Center, Major O found what he was looking for: the communication array that Vex Corvain used to coordinate his forces across the galaxy, but instead of destroying it, O activated it. "All Coalition forces," he said, his voice broadcasting across every Coalition base and ship in known space. "This is Major O Dongwook of the Terran military. We are coming for you, all of you. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Back in space, the last Coalition ships were trying to retreat, but Captain Bei Sujin's destroyer was faster than anything they had ever seen. Her ship caught the fleeing vessels one by one, her weapons punching through their engines and leaving them drifting helplessly in space. "Please," came a transmission from one of the damaged Coalition ships. "We surrender. We yield." Admiral Ryu's response was broadcast across the galaxy. "President Kang Dae-ho offered you surrender. You chose murder instead. Now live with the consequences of that choice." The vengeance of Terra's main weapon fired once. The Coalition ship and the 300 beings aboard it simply ceased to exist. The battle for Kepler 442b lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 200 Coalition ships had been destroyed. Their main base was in ruins, and over 50,000 Coalition soldiers were dead. The human fleet had lost exactly 0 ships, and their casualties numbered in the dozens. But the most important moment came at the end, when Vex Corvain was dragged before Admiral Ryu in chains. The Coalition leader, who had spoken so confidently about strength and weakness, now cowered before the human commander. "You've seen what we're capable of," Admiral Ryu said quietly. "But this is just the beginning. We know where every Coalition base is located. We know the names of every Coalition supporter. We know where they sleep, where they eat, where they hide their children." Vex Corvain tried to speak, but his voice came out as a whisper. "The galaxy will stop you. They'll unite against you." Admiral Ryu smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "The galaxy is watching, Vex Corvain. They're learning what happens when someone kills a human leader who spent his life protecting them. They're learning what we're really like when we stop being nice." He gestured to his soldiers, enhanced humans whose eyes glowed with augmented vision systems. "Take him to the detention center. Keep him alive. I want the Coalition to know that their leader is watching what we do to his followers." As Vex Corvain was dragged away, Admiral Ryu turned to address the galaxy through the still-active communication systems. "This was just the first lesson," he said. "We have identified 42 more Coalition strongholds. We will visit each one. We will eliminate every Coalition ship, every Coalition base, every Coalition supporter. And when we are finished, the galaxy will understand why President Kang worked so hard to keep this side of humanity hidden." The transmission ended, and across the galaxy, beings of every species sat in stunned silence. The gentle humans they had known for decades had revealed themselves to be something else entirely. Something ancient, deadly, and absolutely without mercy. And this was only the beginning. 3 months after the destruction of Kepler 442b, the Purity Coalition was learning what it meant to be hunted by humanity. Fleet Admiral Lim Young-Soo commanded the largest military operation in human history, from the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Wrath. Around him, holographic displays showed 17 different star systems where human fleets were simultaneously attacking Coalition strongholds. The coordination was perfect, the timing flawless, and the results were always the same: total annihilation of Coalition forces. "Status report from all task forces," Admiral Lim ordered. The reports came in one by one. Task Force Vengeance had eliminated 3 Coalition bases in the Outer Rim. Task Force Retribution had destroyed a Coalition shipyard that had been building vessels for their planned attack on the Aviaran homeworld. Task Force Justice had caught a Coalition fleet trying to escape into dark space and eliminated every ship. 41. Coalition strongholds eliminated, reported Intelligence Director Shin Jiho. Estimated enemy casualties 800,000. Estimated remaining coalition strength, less than 5% of original numbers. Admiral Lim nodded with satisfaction. The systematic destruction of the coalition had proceeded exactly as planned. But it wasn't just the speed of their victory that was shocking the galaxy. It was the methods humanity was using. Dr. Moon, Haywan's weapons development program had unleashed horrors that even the most militaristic species found disturbing. The nanite swarms that consumed entire coalition bases, leaving nothing but empty metal frameworks. The gravitational weapons that crushed enemy ships into impossibly dense spheres. The temporal disruptors that aged coalition soldiers to death in seconds, but perhaps most terrifying was how much humanity seemed to know about their enemies. Director Shin's intelligence network had revealed capabilities that no one suspected humans possessed. They had detailed files on every coalition member, including personal information, family connections, and hidden bases. They knew which coalition supporters were secretly funding the organization, which governments were providing quiet assistance, and which corporations were selling them weapons. "How long have they been watching us?" whispered Sarek Ambassador Grok Thulmander, as he reviewed the intelligence reports that humans had shared with the Galactic Council. How long have humans been cataloging every species, every government, every individual? The answer came from Dr. Yu Nari, who now served as liaison between the military command and the galactic community. "Since we first joined the Federation," she said simply, "President Kang believed that understanding potential threats was the best way to prevent conflicts. We've been quietly studying everyone for decades. The implications were staggering. While other species had seen humans as naive peacekeepers, humanity had been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. They knew the weaknesses of every major power, the locations of every strategic resource, and the personal details of every important leader." Was Dr. Choi Hyejin, who explained the full scope of human preparation during a closed session with the Galactic Council. Every human colony was built with defensive capabilities, she revealed. Every trade agreement included military access rights. Every cultural exchange program placed human observers in strategic locations. We've been preparing for this day since we first encountered hostile aliens. The council members, beings from dozens of species who had thought they understood humanity, sat in stunned silence. They realized that while they had been focused on their own local concerns, humans had been quietly building the most powerful intelligence and military network the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, the war against the coalition continued with relentless efficiency. Commodore Quan Sai Ram led the assault on the coalition's final major stronghold, a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field at the edge of known space. The station was home to over 100,000 coalition members and served as their supreme command center. "Remember," Admiral Lim's voice came through the communication system, "we want Vex Corvain alive. Everyone else is expendable." The human fleet approached the asteroid field with weapons charged and shields at maximum. The coalition had turned dozens of asteroids into weapon platforms, creating a maze of deadly crossfire that should have been impossible to navigate. But the human ships moved through the field, as if they had practiced this exact maneuver for years. They had. The entire operation had been planned using detailed scans that human merchant vessels had secretly conducted over the past 5 years. Captain Park, Jin Woo of the heavy cruiser Humanity's Sword, demonstrated why enhanced humans were superior soldiers. His reflexes, boosted by genetic modifications that his species had developed centuries ago, allowed him to pilot his ship through spaces that would have been suicidal for normal beings to attempt. The battle for the asteroid station lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the coalition's final stronghold was a drifting wreck, its population either dead or captured. But the most important moment came when Commodore Quan personally stormed the command center where Vex Corvain had been directing the coalition's final desperate resistance. She found him, cowering behind an overturned table, his pale gray skin even more ashen than usual. The being who had once spoken so confidently about strength and purity was now trembling as enhanced human soldiers surrounded him. "Please," Vex whimpered. "I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. Please just kill me quickly." Commodore Quan looked down at him with cold eyes. "You killed President Kang because you thought he made the galaxy weak. You wanted to teach us about strength." She gestured to her soldiers, beings whose genetic enhancements made them faster, stronger, and more deadly than any natural evolution could produce. This is strength, Vex Corvain. This is what we really are when we stop pretending to be something gentler. She activated the station's communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies so the galaxy could witness the Coalition's final defeat. I am Commodore Quan Se Ram of the Terran Defense Force, she announced. The being responsible for President Kang's assassination is in our custody. The Purity Coalition has been eliminated from the galaxy. Every base destroyed, every ship captured or destroyed. Every member either dead or imprisoned. She pulled Vex Corvain to his feet, holding him in front of the camera so the galaxy could see the broken creature who had once claimed to represent strength. This is what happens when someone harms our people, she continued. This is what happens when someone threatens the peace that President Kang died to protect. We are not the gentle species you thought you knew. We are apex predators who chose to be kind. And when that kindness is repaid with murder, she drew her sidearm, a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. We remember what we really are. The weapon fired once. Vex Corvain, the leader of the Purity Coalition, the being who had claimed that mercy was weakness, died instantly. Across the galaxy, beings of every species watched in absolute silence. The message was clear. Humanity's peaceful nature had been a choice, not a limitation. And that choice could be revoked. But it was Fleet Admiral Lim's final broadcast that truly changed the galactic balance of power forever. Citizens of the galaxy, he began, his image appearing on screens throughout known space. The Purity Coalition claimed that cooperation was weakness, that mercy was a flaw, that peace was a disease to be cured. They killed President Kang to prove their point. He paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen the systematic destruction of humanity's enemies. Instead, they proved that President Kang was the strongest person in the galaxy. He had the power to unleash what you have witnessed these past months, but he chose restraint instead. He had the capability to conquer star systems, but he chose to save them. He could have ruled through fear, but he chose to lead through love. The Admiral's voice grew harder, more dangerous. That choice died with him. From this day forward, the galaxy will know humanity's true nature. We are your protectors when you deserve protection. We are your allies when you choose cooperation. But we are your destroyers when you choose violence against the innocent. The transmission ended, and the galaxy was left to contemplate a new reality. Humanity had revealed itself to be the most powerful military force in known space, with capabilities that dwarfed every other civilization. They had technology that could reshape reality itself, intelligence networks that penetrated every government, and soldiers who were more machine than biological, and they had been hiding all of this while serving as peacekeepers and mediators. The age of innocent cooperation was over. The galaxy had learned what sleeping dragons looked like when they woke up angry, and everyone understood that the peace they had enjoyed under President Kang's leadership had not been maintained by weakness, but by the restraint of beings capable of ending civilizations with a thought.